Was there like a reason behind the bands that Scott got?
The what?
The band tattoos?
Oh. You mean I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there was. I don't think it. I don't think it. I don't necessarily know if it means anything or has some sort of any sort of spiritual connotation. I don't know. I don't know if he knows if it had.
Right.
I have no idea.
Cool.
I think he just thought it looked cool, probably. As far as I know.
Okay, so I guess we've talked a lot of things. I talked about a lot of things, but so what was the? I think we kind of talked about what was going on at the time, or maybe you could just reiterate like what was you guys were kind of going through when you and Scott kind of decided like we can't really do this anymore with Chris.
You mean like what were the conversations we had, or
Yeah,
leading
and
up
like
to that?
yeah,
Well, it was kind of a long time coming, really. I mean, Chris went through a lot of mood swings, pretty serious mood swings. And most of them had to do with, I mean, he has problems with anxiety and stuff like that, but most of it was drug or alcohol induced, I think. It was just like one thing after another, where it was just got to be a real drag on tour. Like it was just a pain in the ass. It was just always this dark cloud hanging over his head, and then it got to a point where it was affecting Scott and I in our relationship, where it was because there was just always this negative energy around all the time that we just started like taking that out on each other too, and it just became not fun, and then it became a real drag. And I remember Scott talking about he mentioned it a couple times about quitting, about wanting to just quit the band and do something that was easier, and which was really heartbreaking to me. I was like, and I don't know. I guess I was more into trying to like keep things together and trying to make it happen, and he was just fed up. He just wasn't having it anymore. I remember, actually, I think it was our last show. I remember driving up to Seattle with Scott and him talking about how he wanted, like, I don't think I'm gonna do this for very much longer. Like, I remember us talking about wanting to be in a band that was like the Pixies or something that was easy, like a pop band. I just want to play in a band where I just like blah blah, just kind of fart it out and easy. And I don't think that's really exactly what he meant at the time. I don't think he meant like I don't want to challenge myself, but I think ultimately he just meant something that wasn't as much of a pain in the ass as it became. And then after that show, I guess it was just shortly after that we figured out he was using. I figured out that Chris was using hard drugs. And then, yeah, I think that was kind of it. Like, that was really just the last straw. Like, I remember telling Scott about it, like, listen, I have it on good authority that Chris is using heroin. All signs point to yes. I remember, like, going downtown and finding junkies that I knew that were known junkies and being like, be straight with me, is Chris using heroin? Like, no one wanted to tell me, but like I finally found somebody who would and confirmed it, and it just all made sense. And I remember telling Scott about it because then we set up this intervention, like without any like, it was a very DIY intervention. We didn't have any, we didn't consult anyone or anything like that. I got Scott and talked to Chris's mom and stepdad, and it was just the four of us, and then we invited Chris and Audrey over, who was they were married at the time. And they came over and we just, sprung it on them like, I know you're using heroin. What up? And, I mean, running out of the house and like crying in a bush or something, and Audrey didn't know anything about it either. His wife, like she was like, that's why you've been acting so weird. And eventually he came back inside, and I mean, it was okay. I guess as a DIY intervention goes, I guess it went as well as it could have. I think he went to treatment. His mom ended up taking him into a treatment center that day, and he went. And I remember, like, everybody else was in the kitchen. Scott and I went in and talked to Chris. He was on the couch and he was like crying, and I was like, well, okay, man, well, this is, you gotta do what you gotta do, and we can't be friends with you anymore if you're using heroin. And I mean, basically said all the things you're supposed to say at an intervention, I guess. And I was like, this means the band's over. And I remember saying that, and I know that Scott and I hadn't actually talked about that at all, but we both, like, it was just like implied, like when I told him that he was using heroin, that we didn't even have to say it, I think. It was just like, well, that's it, like, and I mean, it had already been like a real, the year leading up to that, like he tried to commit suicide, and there were plenty of other problems with alcohol for sure that were really messy, and so it was just like the nail in the coffin there. It was just like fucking exhausting. Just couldn't do it anymore.
And so what was that period of time like for you, like when it was, you realized that was that, so to speak?
I was kind of relieved in a way, because it had gotten to a point where it wasn't that much fun anymore, and it was affecting relationships with everyone around us, really, because it was just such a heavy thing all the time. And I of course was bummed that the band was breaking up and all that, but not that much though. Like I was, but it was almost more of a relief that it was just like, now I don't have to deal with this anymore. And he's gonna get help, and even if he doesn't get totally clean, and he's stays clean, and I think even then we just knew that even if that did happen, even if he got clean, and that he was totally fine, and he had a brand new attitude adjustment and all that, that it was still just like, it was too late. It was too far gone. Like the damage had been done, and I don't think there was any way. The resentments, the resentments of the past would have found a way to carry over into the future, no doubt about it. So, yeah, I was bummed, but I at the time I was playing in another band. I was playing with the Typos, and so I still had, a band to play with. I still had got to go on tour, so, but yeah, I really missed playing with Scott, for sure. Like that was, after that happened, we didn't hang out that much for, I don't know, a couple of years. Like we just needed kind of some space from each other, just because, not because we didn't get along, but because it was just, everything had been such a traumatic time, a really heavy time, and we just kind of needed, I guess, just some space to like do our own thing for a while, independently from one another, after having been friends for so long, and then growing up together, and then playing in a band and touring for years, and needed some breathing room, and which was good. I think it was, in the end, it was what needed to happen, for sure.
Now your mom was saying, when all this was going on, she was kind of telling you, like, well, why don't you just, tell Chris, this is it, and get somebody else. So what were kind of the reasons that wasn't what you were going to do?
Oh, I think we recognized that it was some bands are like that, and some bands aren't. Some bands, it's like one person's deal, and they can like hire and fire whoever they want, and it's still like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there's lots of bands like that, where it's like two people that kind of run the show, or one person that runs the show, and then new drummers or new bass players or new whoever, kind of this rotating door of people, and they can still be that band with different members, but I mean, it just wouldn't have been the same. Like, it wouldn't have been, we couldn't have, after all of that, and it might have been different if we had been a band and we had started when we were in our mid-20s or something, or like in our late 20s, and recorded one record, and then Chris had problems, and then we could get somebody else maybe. But, it was I think we recognized that it was a special band, in that we were really good friends first, and then became a band, and then, went from there. I mean, it just wouldn't have been the dynamic wouldn't have been the same. In a lot of ways, like, Chris's, a lot of his negative energy, made that chemistry work to a certain extent. I think if he had been happy-go-lucky all the time, probably wouldn't have been the same band. There was a certain darkness, dark energy that fueled some of that musical anger, I guess, or fueled what we did. But I mean, there were lots of shows where it was, there was palpable anger on stage. It's like, fuck you too. All right, Nick, you gonna sing this fucking part or what? You gonna do it tonight? You motherfucking. There was lots of shows like that, especially towards the end, And I remember playing some of those shows and being like, just getting out of the van and having been just arguing for like 2 hours, getting out, playing a fuck you show, and then people, oh, that was a fucking great show, bro. That was so intense. And then you don't know the half of it. Some argument about cigarettes or something, probably. Who knows? But I forgot what I was talking about.
So what were so you were, Jesus, these mosquitoes are like,
they'll kill you.
huge eagles. So you were already playing Tight Bros then before you guys.
Yeah, it was like maybe 6 months of overlap, something like that, thereabouts. Yeah, and it became more of a real band once I didn't have another, like, for me anyway, and afforded us the opportunity to tour more. I think Quiddy and Dave were playing, and maybe Bad the Prophet was still playing at that time too. I don't remember, but yeah.
And so what were the kind of the things that brought about the Whip kind of reuniting with Scotty for that project?
Well, like I said, there was a good couple years where we hung out, but like not like we did, he kind of, he started exploring a lot of, like, he got into like drum and bass and like went to raves and kind of got into the bar scene, like both working and socially. And kind of just made a whole new group of friends for himself. And I was friends with those people, but not like he was with that group of folks. And then he ended up moving to Seattle, and I kind of had it with Olympia at that point, and figured that would be. And I'd had in the back of my head for a long time that I wanted to start another band with him, but was kind of waiting it out, making sure that like things were comfortable between us again, and that, making sure that we were both in a place where we could do that again, and not, be at each other's throats. And so after he moved to Seattle, he joined a band called the Bronze, which were say metal, I guess they were a metal band, or a rock and roll band. And then when I moved up there, I went to see them a couple times, and it just made me insanely jealous. Like, it made me mad. And I think at the time, the Type Bros had broken up at that point, that had just kind of dissolved. So I didn't have like any band at all. And I'd been working on songs on my 4-track in my house. And really, I kind of just moved to Seattle, just didn't have, was just really lonely in a lot of ways. And just really wanted to play music with him again. And so finally, I managed to kind of make up this demo with a drum machine and recording these songs. And I remember going to the bar he worked at in Seattle one night, and I brought a boombox in my car, like a battery-powered boombox with this tape, and had a few drinks at the bar with him. Listen, man, I really want to play music with you again. And I had a couple drinks to loosen myself up, and got kind of emo, and listen, man, I wrote these songs. I really want to play with you. And I think that I really needed to do that. I don't think that he would have. I'm not exactly sure what it was. Maybe pride or his ego, or I needed to make the first move, basically. I don't think he would have. And I wasn't exactly sure that he would want to play in a band, so I kind of felt like I was going. It was like asking some girl out on a date that you had the hots for, but wasn't really sure. I think she kind of likes me, but I'm not sure. I was like, fuck it. So yeah, I went in with the boombox and was like, well, come out of the car and listen to these songs I wrote. And I remember sitting in the car and listening to the songs. And he was like, yeah, I think I could do that. I'm like, all right, cool. And I was so happy. I went home and I was so excited that we were gonna play music, and again. And I remember having the first practice. We used his other band's practice space, and they weren't too happy about that. I remember they were definitely afraid that I was going to steal him away from the band, and which, frankly, yeah, that was totally my intention. But they couldn't really tour that much because they had jobs, and I just thought it was a real waste of Scott's talent to be in a band that just because of what everybody else in the band was doing, they just couldn't do other things, or do the kind of things that, they couldn't go on tour. They couldn't, yeah. So I remember practicing, and I remember, oh man, for a while, I got some icy stares from the singer of the Bronze. We'd pass each other in the bar, and he'd just give me the eye, and I was like, oh, damn. And I remember Scott saying that, telling them that I was like, well, I'm gonna play with Jared, and we can still play, and if you, it's not like I can't be in two bands. And I think they gave him an ultimatum. He was like, well, it's either us or him, and dude's lost, which I feel bad about. But I mean, really, it was just so it was important for me anyway to play with Scott again for more than he was just a good drummer. I really needed to reconnect with him as a friend, and have that. I really needed that bond, with him in particular. And yeah, when we started playing, I remember the first practice, I had a bunch of my bass gear had kind of fallen by the wayside, and put together this ridiculous, just garbage heap of crap, and we practiced, and it was great. It was so much fun, really a blast. And yeah, I was just instantly excited, and I think he was really happy that I asked him to play music again, and well, because he said as much, because it showed. And yeah, kind of from after that, at the time he had broken up with a girlfriend, and that he liked a lot, and he moved into this house with these really awesome ladies, and it was just, I don't know, it was just kind of like the old days, again, almost instantly. I'd go over to his house, hang out with these ladies and him, drink coffee, just laugh for an hour or so, and then go to practice. And then eventually I think we told Joe that we'd come down to Olympia for something, and told Joe that had started this band, and he kind of raised his brows and like, really? I've been wanting to play guitar lately. Like, oh, really? Okay, well. And so, yeah. So then he just started commuting and coming up and playing with us, practicing, and it worked. I remember the first whip practice, we practiced in Joe's basement, and Scott and I already had these songs, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 songs. We're teaching them to Joe, and I remember his basement just sounded terrible, and I just wasn't sure if he was, like, Joe's back, he's got terrible back problems. And I remember the whole practice, he was just like, oh God, just like stretching, and I just thought he was just bored or he wasn't into it at all. And I remember going out and smoking with Scott, and like, is he into it? Does he hate this? Are we wasting our time? Like, whatever. And he just, oh no, my back just hurts, I'm fine, and I'm into it. And then, he kind of learned the songs a little more, and yeah, it was within a few practices, it started sounding like it was going to work. And yeah, it was just a real blast. Like, it was really, really fun. I remember that being a really, really good, like, just a fun time. Both because I got to hang out with Scott and Joe and, just spend hours laughing with those guys and playing music that was fun to play. And yeah, it was just a really good vibe. Like, it was exactly what, for me anyway, it was exactly what I needed in my life at that point, was to be playing with people I loved and had a really good time doing it. And we just did one West Coast tour, but it was so much fun. It was just such a blast. Like, just, laughing and goofing off and playing really fun shows, even though it was our first tour, and people coming out and having a good time. And yeah, it was really great. And Scott really seemed like he could get really dark too, but it was usually things that he would just get really frustrated, I think, with his own life. Like, he would just get frustrated about things not going his way, or sometimes it was a matter of just having too much caffeine, or who knows, or being too tired. But like, when we started doing that again, like, he was coming out of a relationship, like I said, and was playing in a band, but ultimately wasn't exactly what he wanted to be doing, and his whole attitude just really changed when we started playing again. Like, he just was he was just happier, I think, and I definitely was too. For sure, just having a blast. Good times.
And so, how long was it a period of time between starting that band and then his accident?
Let's see. Not that long. Long enough to put out a 7-inch. Let's see. I remember the night I went in to go to with the boombox to convince him to play music again. It was raining. That could have been anywhere from September to May. So I think it was probably like in the fall. And then he passed away in June. So it was probably about 8 months, thereabouts. Yeah, probably about 8 months. Long enough to kind of get our shit together and write enough songs for, we had another tour, we had a national tour scheduled, and then he passed away, and then I think we were getting ready to record a record, or we had enough songs to do so anyway. So yeah, about 8 months, I guess.
And then after he has this accident, what was like that whole period? I mean, that whole period of time like for you? Like after that happens.
Uh, it was awful. It was terrible. Um, it was really difficult on for lots of different reasons. I had, you know, lost my oldest friend, person that made me laugh the most. Somebody I really loved playing music with. Someone I didn't have to explain jokes to. And it was because it was such a good. When we started the Whip, it was such a good vibe, and it just felt like things were finally going to fall into place. In terms of just being in a band where everybody's functional and it's not a pain in the ass and it's fun and enjoyable, and maybe we would even make some money, you know. It was just really exciting. And then when he died, it was just such a like such a blow. Like it felt like we felt like we were on the verge of really getting some shit done. And I don't know, I just felt really lost for a long time. Like I didn't know what to do. I couldn't see myself playing music with anyone else at that point, because it had taken me so long to get up the nerve to ask him to play music again in the first place. And so, and we had really started, we would become much better friends again too, which was great. We, you know, really reconnected and started hanging out again, like outside of practice and the band, and I never felt super comfortable in Seattle, even though it was only an hour from my hometown and I knew people and had friends. But I was really starting to feel like I was part of the city, you know, that I lived in, through, you know, Scott in a lot of ways. And then it was gone. And I mean, I didn't have anything else going on. I was just working at some crap bar, and I really didn't know. It was a really long summer of I really just didn't know what to do. I didn't know, I had no idea what I was gonna do. But I knew that I decided that I wasn't going to wallow in my own misery, and I wasn't gonna wallow in self-pity, and I knew that I needed to do something, that I wanted to keep playing music, but I just really didn't know in what capacity. I really didn't know, like, I couldn't see myself playing with another drummer. Not with, like, music that you know, the thing that we did, you know. And I didn't know how to make that happen with anyone else. But fortunately, Cody, I can't remember, he was talking to somebody, maybe it was our friend Carrie, maybe, and I think he had asked her, like, do you think I should ask Jared to play music? And I think it had been June, it was like October of that same year, so it had been like 4 or 5 months after Scott had passed away. And she was like, yeah, you should call him, just do it. Like, what do you got to lose? You know, and so he did, and I thought he was a good drummer, and I was like, yeah, what the hell, why not? So we started doing it, and it was good. Like, it felt really good, it felt natural, and Cody was super easy to get along with, and he was funny, and yeah, it really worked. Like, it was was very therapeutic, and fun, and I think that if he had waited longer, maybe if he'd called any sooner, I probably wouldn't have wanted to, because it would have been too soon. And I did struggle with that too for a while, because I thought, well, has it been enough time? You know, it was like this weird thing, like where there's not really there's no rule book for that, and no precedent, and I didn't know, like, I don't know, how long am I supposed to wait before it's okay for me to play in another band? It felt really weird, but I just felt like it was better than not doing anything, and you know, I think it was. I think Cody called right at the right time. Like, you know, if it had been any longer, I might have been in a real serious funk and just like had been too lazy and too like depressed or something to do it. So, yeah, it worked out really well, actually. All things considered.
Is that, or I mean, I'm probably not all the songs, but are any of those songs off that first record kind of like concerning Scott or your friendship with
The
him?
first
Like
Big
lyrically?
Business
Yeah,
record?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose there are, yeah. Probably not super specific, but there's probably lyrics that sound like they're about somebody you miss and that is gone, and that's probably what they're about, you know. I mean, I can't think of. I mean, I know there are songs, but I can't say that there's songs that are just all the way through, like every lyric is about Scott or our relationship or whatever. But just because that's not really how I write lyrics, I guess, maybe. But sure, I mean, definitely, and if not lyrically, just the overall sentiment in general is you know, or the feeling of the songs, or you know, I was still very much in mourning when all those songs were written, you know. So yeah, definitely. And still, I mean, I still, you know, him and our friendship and his death still affect me on a daily basis, like in lots of ways that I can't necessarily describe. And it's not that I think, I mean, lots of people have friends or loved ones that die, but I guess I don't want to make it sound like that we had this extra special relationship that nobody can understand, but I think that's true. I think there's something to be said for growing up with somebody, knowing them very intimately, sharing a passion that you both can work on together, expressing yourselves artistically together, and then just all the stuff that we went through together, like with the band, with Carp and Chris and all that. Like, we went through some really heavy times, and kind of coming out, finally having our heads above water after all of that, and doing something really positive, and then have it really it was just really fucking intense. And I mean, I still feel like there's you know, Chris and Scott and I were very, very good friends, and there's no two people in the world that made me laugh harder than those guys. And you know, one of them is kind of MIA, and the other is gone, and there's nothing I can do about that. And it leaves there's a real lonely spot in my heart where that's concerned. Man, I have a lot of friends that make me laugh and stuff too, and I try to surround myself with friends that are funny and make me laugh and all that. But it was different, and it's you know, it hurts a lot. I miss both of them all the time. And that's not to say I'm not thankful for what I have now. I think I'm really lucky. I think I, all things considered, have managed to, with a lot of luck and just the love of really good people, have managed to come out of it okay, you know, without a lot of terrible scars that keep me from doing things. So, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, family and friends, and but I still, yeah, it's hard for me to explain to people like what that's like, or what it's like to lose the two most, your two best friends, and in like awful ways, you know. No, there's probably a good way to lose two best friends, but yeah, just, I mean, you know, I think about Chris all the time, and I wish him well, but I can't talk to him. I can't, you know, I can't be friends with him. I can't go through that anymore. I can't worry about that. You know, I spent a lot of time wondering, you know, waiting for a phone call in the middle of the night. Ah, Chris OD'd. Finally, you know, it's terrible. This is awful. Or he really did it this time, or, you know, like, just, yeah. I just couldn't do that anymore. No. I don't know.
So,
We losing light.
yeah, pretty much. Let me see if I can squeeze in a little bit more of it. Oh yeah, this helps a little bit. Okay, so what do you think? Well, I want to ask you two more questions. One is, what do you think kind of now, like, I mean, you're obviously not done, but from this point in time, looking back, what do you kind of think about, like, this journey that you've been on of all the, you know, going through it, looks like this is going to happen, and then this thing happens, and you're forced to confront it and carry on, you know, like that sort of thing.
Like, what are the life lessons I've learned from that, or just?
Yeah, or just what do you just think about the whole thing as a package now that you can look back and see it all?
Well, I don't think I'd trade it for anything. I mean, I had a really good time for a long time, and I think, I don't know, shitty things happen to people all the time. And I'm very lucky that I had at least a really good time doing that before shitty things started happening, you know. And I'm still surrounded by people who I love and love me back, and I'm still surrounded by lots of really good friends, and for a while after Scott passed away, there were two things I'd always say a lot. I thought they were really clever, but the two lessons I really learned from all of that was that shit happens and keep on trucking. It sounds trite and ridiculous and cliche and silly, but I think it's really true. Like, I think that you can't rely on anybody for your happiness. Because people go, they leave, they die, they break up with you, they move away, like, and all you can do is enjoy the relationships that you have with people in that moment, and just do the best you can. Because even if you're doing your best, like, things can just be, you know, hurricane come in and take your house, like, whatever, like, you know, there's natural disasters, like a fire, like some nut job starts shooting a gun randomly, you know, I mean, there's just like a million things that can happen. And I really tried, I still do, but I especially focused on it after Scott died was to really just try not to take things for granted at all, and that you have to just keep going, and that you can't like, you know, just wallow in your own self-pity, and you have to, there's still a life to live, you know, and it's a struggle, you know. Sometimes, of course, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to find things that make you happy, and it's life can be very discouraging sometimes. But for me, I just feel lucky that I've had a really good support system of friends and family, and that even if I think that even if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to just be a bummer and be depressed, that they just wouldn't. There's enough people who love me that wouldn't have allowed that. You know, that would have kicked my ass into gear. And fortunately, I didn't allow that to happen because it's embarrassing. But so yeah, I mean, I find the whole journey inspiring and sad and hilarious and worth doing again if I had the opportunity, I suppose. There'd be some things I would change. Some different decisions might be made, but ultimately I think that, you know, I am fortunate to have loved and lost as opposed to never have loved at all. So, good for me. I win.